This is a brief introduction into absence code configuration within DayMap. Whilst absence codes aren't changed frequently, an understanding of how their configuration impacts on attendance functionality and attendance reporting is essential, particularly for attendance administrators and school leaders. The absence code configuration page is reached via the attendance menu and the codes option. When we reach the page, we're presented with a listing of the absence codes and their various properties shown in table format. A number of these columns can be ignored as the properties aren't currently shown or used anywhere else within DayMap. These are the category, description, and details columns. The values in the code column are what teachers and attendance administrators are presented with for role marking purposes. Each code has a number of properties. These are listed at the right-hand side: counted, approved, admin only, late, and cancelled. Whilst the absence codes we're discussing here are used for the recording of lesson level attendance, this lesson level attendance may in turn be used in daily attendance calculations. The counted property determines whether the lesson level attendance recorded using the absence code should in turn contribute to daily attendance calculations. If counted is set to false, attendance recorded using the code will be interpreted as present in daily attendance calculations. An understanding of the impact of the counted property is essential when reviewing and analysing daily attendance. Non-government schools have greater flexibility in respect to the codes they can configure, whereas government schools generally need to use a mandated set of codes. Government schools can still create codes outside the mandated set. They do, however, need to configure the counted property as false for such codes. This will mean that the code is only relevant within DayMap, and as discussed, attendance marked with the codes configured with the counted property as false will be treated as present in daily attendance calculations. The next property that we have is approved. This is a DayMap specific categorization of absence codes. It allows a division of attendance into either approved or unapproved. This is shown at various points within DayMap, most commonly as approved and unapproved percentage attendance rates. Generally, there will only be a few absence codes set to unapproved, for example, truancy and unexplained. The next property is admin only. This determines whether attendance administrators should be the only people allowed to mark attendance with the code. In other words, whether or not teachers are restricted from using the absence code. It's worth noting that there are related system settings that can potentially override the admin-only property altogether. The late property is by default viewed as present for the approved and unapproved percentage attendance rate calculations mentioned earlier. Generally, you will also want to configure the counted property as false for late absence codes, so that they are treated as present in the aforementioned daily attendance calculations. Attendance marked with late codes show on student timetables as a small L. The last property is cancelled. This ties to the approved and unapproved absence attendance rates mentioned earlier. Attendance marked with a cancelled absence code will decrease the number of classes that contribute to the approved and unapproved percentage attendance rate calculations. A good example of this is where senior school students finish the year earlier than other students. One approach to handling this is to perform a bulk roll marking activity using a cancelled absence code for the applicable students and date range, and accordingly decrease the number of classes that contribute to the percentage attendance rates. A couple of final points. It's important to remember that reconfiguration of the absence codes doesn't change any of the underlying attendance data, but it does change the way it's interpreted in attendance reports. Note, if the configuration changes affect daily attendance, then the associated calculations will need to be rerun. The calculations happen by default as part of the nightly timetable import, but there are options for pushing this through sooner. It's also important to understand that students are by default considered present. In other words, if a lesson roll remains unmarked, the students in the class will be assumed present. To edit an existing code, we use the pencil icon at the right-hand side of the code. On the resulting page, we see the details of the selected absence code and the properties that we've just run through, this time in vertical format. This is also where we set the default absence code. The current default is shown for convenience. The default absence code is the code auto-selected when the present tick box is initially deselected by teachers on the class roll. The buttons at the top of the page are Save to record any changes, New to create a new code, Delete to remove the code, and the Codes button will return us to the absence code listing. Clicking the Delete button will prompt for confirmation, and if the code being deleted has previously been used to record attendance, an absence merge operation will be required. Caution should be taken here as merge operations cannot be readily undone.